Hey everyone, Irene Lyon here. Welcome to this entire world of nervous system health and healing. Recently, I was on a call. It was a call I was hosting for some of our online students. And one individual asked a great question. And I answered the question in a way that was not maybe what they were expecting. So I wanted to share this answer or this question and answer with you because it really resonated with the student to the point where they got incredibly emotional in a good way. And it falls into the topic of being accountable. So being accountable for ourselves. In this case, it was their worry about being accountable and staying on track with the learning and lessons in one of my online programs, namely Smart Body, Smart Mind. Now, I also want to add into this video that so much of our lack of accountability, from my experience in teaching many people over the years in person, but also in online, but also being in university for as long as I have, right? I have had to hold myself accountable to many things, whether it was university, trainings, showing up for things, getting assignments, reports done, all this sort of stuff. So I have a lot of experience with this. And I think a lot of our lack of accountability comes from a few spots, few places and spaces. One is maybe, I think, from the way in which we as humans have been put into an education system, for most of us, that was incredibly traumatic. That was very much about trying to train and mold little humans to be robotic cogs within a system, to just produce and not even create, but produce, show up, pass the test, get good grades, and then off to something else. And so often I think our lack of drive to be accountable is because many of us were traumatized in our early stages of learning. It just wasn't pleasant. So that's one thing I wanted to add here, because I have seen that as many of my students get more regulated and grow capacity in their bodies, they become more accountable by default because they're becoming more attuned to their physiology, to their body, but also to their purpose and to what they're supposed to do here currently on planet Earth. And so these things kind of travel alongside each other. But for some of us, it can be so hard to stay accountable when there isn't the threat of failing a test, or there isn't a reward that we get right in the end. There isn't a gold star or a prize or a trophy or a pat on the back saying good job, which again, so many of us were pushed and threatened into our learning environments. And so when we're off into the world as adults and there's none of this accountability in those ways that are highly driven by survival stress, we just don't have it. And so, of course, sometimes it helps to have another person. And this is what the individual is asking. Is there a way to get an accountability buddy? And of course, in some of our forums, people will pair up. They'll say, hey, does anybody want to meet once a week? And we just check in on text or Zoom or telephone or however it might be. And that can be very, very helpful. But not everybody has that capacity. Not everybody has that desire to be social. So that's one way, and that can definitely be helpful. But what I suggested to this person was this: how can you be your own accountability buddy? How can you be your own accountability buddy? How can you be the person that cheers you on? And what I said is, you're somewhere now, and this is kind of where the quantum world and my interests in there being no time, right? Of course there is time. We have to show up and be on time for things. But I know through the world of trauma and healing trauma, when we're processing something that's old, it can feel like we are in another time, that we go back to being age 5 or back to being age 13 or 25. And it feels like we are literally in that moment. And the reason why is because we're experiencing the sensations, sometimes the same hormones, the same chemicals, the same feelings of our body. Our body will even maybe go into a certain position that mimics an old accident. So while that thing happened a long time ago, we're feeling it in the moment. So I'm giving you that lead up to say, what I then said to this person was, can you imagine yourself in a year a little more regulated, a little more full of capacity, a little more less in survival? Can you have that future self be your accountability buddy? And this is something that, for those who are looking to be more accountable to themselves, this is something, after this video is done, maybe go back and ask yourself these questions or write this down, journal, imagine, visualize, have the intention of where do I want to be in a year, or where do I want to be in a week, or what would my future self, who is more regulated and has shifted whatever it is that you're wanting to work with, how can that future person come back and say to you in this moment, just keep going. Just do little bits. Doesn't have to be a lot. This isn't about passing a test. This isn't about getting a good grade. It's about just doing a tiny little piece, being accountable to maybe one thing. So I will leave it at that. It's a very simple piece of, we could call it advice, or a different way of seeing how we can become accountable to ourselves by bringing in our future self into our viewpoint, into our intention, and really saying to ourselves now, with that connection to that energy, that essence in the future, how can that energy, that essence, that person that is you, look back and say, come on, let's just go a little bit more. Let's go a little bit more. Let's try this today. Just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. And then come back, assess, how did it feel to do a little bit of the work, to do a little bit of whatever it is that you're learning, whether it's within my courses or someone else's courses, or something that you know that you're putting off. Use yourself as your own cheerleader, as your own accountability expert, buddy, whatever you want to call it, so that you are able to move through this world. Of course, we need other people and we want to have people in our lives, but sometimes having that relationship to ourself is powerful and important. So I hope this has been a little information nugget for all of you who know that you struggle with getting things done, with accountability, and you're always looking for that person to keep you on track. How would it be if you were the person that kept you on track, and that future person is the person that is cheering you on to do what you need to do today in this moment? And eventually it's possible that this current self meets that future self and they merge, and it just becomes a lot easier to do things, to have ourselves take action, and to not sort of put ourselves into what we might call sabotage and resistance and procrastination. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.